Governor, given how unpopular polls show President Biden is, has Vice President Harris done enough to distance herself from President Biden?
Kristen Welker repeatedly pressed Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro on the question that has become a huge issue for the Harris campaign. How exactly would her leadership differ from that of Joe Biden's? And I think the way she framed the question there was a good way of framing it. Because yes, this election, of course, is between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, not against Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. However, when you consider the fact that Kamala Harris is Joe Biden's vice president, and when you consider the fact that Joe Biden is an unpopular president, well, she needs to have an answer, and her supporters and allies need to have an answer for this question. Let's see how Shapiro answered it.
Well, here we are again on the Young Turks with Ana Kasparian agreeing with this interviewer. She's questioning Pennsylvania Governor, what was his name? Josh Shapiro, about Kamala Harris's failure or inability, seemingly, to differentiate herself from Joe Biden. And it's a fair question. I've seen several videos, I've commented on several, maybe you've seen them, where people ask her, it's a very simple question. It's very easy to answer. Even, either way, however you want to answer, it's an easy thing to answer. You can say, well, I'm pretty much the same. I was in his cabinet, I would do a few things different like this. Or I would do everything different like this now that if I'm in charge, or whatever. It can't be that difficult. But she just can't do it. She's literally, all she does is spit out word salad and says nonsense, and even nonsense. She barely even says that. But let's see what this Pennsylvania governor is going to say about it.
Kristen, I think what is clear is this is a race not between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, but between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And on that, there are clear contrasts. Kamala Harris wants to cut taxes for the middle class and small businesses. Donald Trump's tariffs and his economic policies would raise costs for middle class families. I think Kamala Harris has a strong and competent approach to foreign policy to try and calm tensions overseas. Donald Trump just wants to throw a grenade and everything and create more chaos. And
what on earth is this guy talking about? Okay, I get it. He's a politician. He's obviously a Democrat. Obviously pro Kamala Harris. What was that about the foreign policy? That Kamala Harris is going to just calm tensions, relax everything, and Donald Trump's approach is just to throw a grenade in and see what happens and cause chaos? Absolute nonsense. Donald Trump, during his first term, was actually very good on foreign policy in that sense. He just wants to make deals. He wants things to be cool. He wants everyone to be cool. Let's not go to war. We can do business. It's all that kind of thing. And did you notice what he said before that about how Kamala Harris wants to cut taxes for the middle class and small businesses? Okay, sounds good. Whereas Donald Trump's policies of, what would he say? What was it? Tariffs and something else would put greater pressure on the middle class. So he didn't actually compare, he compared apples and oranges, her tax cuts with his tariffs or whatever. You can't compare those things. Should be comparing whatever tax cuts she proposes to whatever tax cuts he proposes. But of course he didn't do that. Let's carry on with this guy.
More suffering across the globe. I think you have a clear contrast on freedom between those two candidates. Kamala Harris wants to restore Roe. Donald Trump brags about how he's ripped away the freedom from millions of women across this country. So listen, I think you have a clear contrast between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and voters are going to the polls literally right now all across America, focusing on that choice.
Don't get me started on the American voting process. How on earth is it possible to submit your ballots so far in advance? I'll never understand how people are putting up with this nonsense. The country where I live, in this unnamed, unspecified Western European country where I've lived for over 30 years, no, voting day is voting day. You have to, in a lot of Western European countries, you have to vote. But in any case, there is one day to do it. There are very few exceptions for really edge cases, yes, where, for example, if you're abroad that day or something like that. But none of this mail-in, and certainly not mail-in ballots and all this. The whole thing just boggles the mind, the insecurity of the American election process.
Not a choice between Kamala Harris and Joe Biden.
Kamala Harris does not have a foreign policy proposal. Let's be absolutely clear about that. And all
Anna agrees with me. What a surprise.
of her statements in regard to the broadening and ongoing war in the Middle East has essentially been in line with what we've been hearing from Joe Biden. So I'm sorry, I can't let that lie stand. She would not calm the situation down in the Middle East. Now, to be clear, I don't believe Trump would either. Trump has just been funded by Miriam Adelson to the tune of $90 million in order to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. But please don't lie about Kamala Harris allegedly having a better plan on foreign policy. She does not. In fact, she can't stand Palestinian protesters at any of her events and brushes them off as if they mean nothing. So that's the reality of her foreign policy. I'm not going to let someone lie about that. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, so I agree with Anna on both fronts. First of all, it's not even worth discussing the foreign policy. Whenever you ask her, she says, I know about Palestinian grief. I've heard about it. I'm not going to do anything about it.
Wow, Cenk's been kind of funny today. Yeah, that sounds like Kamala Harris.
I'm going to keep sending bombs to kill your family members. Yeah, Trump would kill more of your family members. So you should vote for me. I'm killing less of your family members. No, that's exactly Biden's policy. No difference at all. Zero. So now the reason you have to make a difference between you and Biden is because Biden is deeply unpopular. I know that hurts the feelings of Democratic voters.
But it's the truth.
But it is the reality, and he's in the low 30s, sometimes high 20s. Countries going in the right direction is at 25%. If you say that, yes, Biden nailed it, we're going in the right direction, you're going to lose the election. That is super clear. So you have to find a substantive way of saying, this is what Joe Biden did, I appreciate him. You don't have to throw him under a bus, right? But this is what I'm going to do. So one easy way to do it is say, Joe Biden, and I'm going to do this instead of, right? But they don't even have and. That is such bad preparation. And it's really, guys, it's not about pleasing us. Who cares about us? You have to make sure that you get the right message to the voters. Otherwise, they'll think you're the same as Biden and they'll vote against you.
Now, let's watch. And I want to give Kristen Welker credit because she's.
Good points by Cenk there. It's unbelievable how unprepared Kamala Harris is. It'd be so simple to be prepared for those kinds of questions. He's right. I mean, whether you agree with what she's going to say or not, they've made zero effort. Or she's just so vacant and vapid and dumb that she can't even remember the message that they want to get across.
She's one of the few hosts on these morning shows, Sunday morning shows, who actually asks tough questions and tough follow-up questions to both sides, and I really do appreciate that. So she wasn't happy with Josh Shapiro's answer, so she tried again and again. Let's watch.
I understand what you're saying, Governor, but polls do show that more Americans feel as though President Biden's policies have hurt them rather than helped them. So can you name one key policy difference between Vice President Harris and President Biden? How would her administration look different?
You know, I've been really encouraged by the amount of energy that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, has put into focusing on how she will cut taxes for small businesses, the focus on child care tax credit expansion. That's something I've done here in Pennsylvania. We've seen that work to ease the burden on families. I think a focus on those kinds of things is particularly important, and those are the kinds of things I think Kamala Harris has brought specifically to this race.
Oh my God. God, politicians are just sleazy, slimy, slippery eels. Can you believe this guy? You know, he listened to her question and answered a completely different question, totally ignored it. God, you just want to slap him. Honestly, I can't believe, I mean, all politicians at national level where I live aren't much better. But God, that was just, what a performance.
Those aren't necessarily differences, though. They're an expansion or a tweak to some extent to what's been done. Can you name one policy difference?
Well, listen, again, the contrast I am focused on, Kristen, is between her and Donald Trump. And on that, I think it is clearly different.
So, just to reiterate, the reason why this question keeps coming up for the Harris campaign is because Biden's unpopularity can be a real liability for her in the election. In fact, in mid-September, the Democratic Research and Polling Initiative Blueprint conducted a national poll that tested various potential statements that Harris could make about herself and Biden. Those that performed best, the polling found, were those that displayed a clear break between her and Biden, while those that performed worst were those that portrayed a future Harris administration as building on the accomplishments of the Biden era. But any mention of Biden, the polling found, led to less support, even if the position it had Harris taking was the same.
Yeah, so Biden is toxic. That hurts Democrats' feelings so much that they want to say, no, it's not. I never believe any numbers if they come out against us. I don't believe. Guys, you're going to lose the election if you don't recognize the reality.
Yep, they're going to lose the election if they do not recognize reality, says Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. And, well, I would agree. I mean, I do agree with that. You know, whether they'll lose the election or not, one has to wonder, because there's also, I heard some reports, I haven't seen if they're verified, of people doing early voting, and these machines are not, you know, they vote one way in the machine, then when it spits out the paper at the end, the paper says something different. So I don't know if that was fake news I was looking at. Let me know if you guys have heard anything about voting irregularities of any kind or problems with the voting machines. But it looks like the Young Turks, especially Cenk, because he's still, you know, he's still deep in the progressive heart of things. Ana, as we know, has been busting out from the leftist bubble for some time now. But, you know, Cenk for sure seems pretty alarmed that the Democrats are not doing better at this point in the race. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, I think it's Donald Trump's to win or to lose. But we shall see. You know, a couple weeks is a long time in politics, as they say. Anyway, in the meantime, please like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.